All right. Good evening, everyone. This would be our first class for CMAT, meaning that I know Shweta ma'am has covered some questions from CMAT before from the verbal point of view, but with me, this will be the first discussion. Uh, One moment. Good evening, everyone. If there is any audio issue, please let me know. All right. So let's get started with today's discussion. So the CMAT exam, the date has been advanced. Usually, the exam is conducted around April or May, but this time the exam, the NTA, the National Testing Academy, has decided that to conduct the exam on 25th of January. So it has there's sort of a major change in the schedule, but it's actually in terms of for students who've been preparing for MBA aptitude exams. This is better because you're already in practice. You've been practicing questions, similar questions. You've already taken exams like NMAT and SNAP, which are actually more similar to this exam. One moment. So before we start, I wanted to discuss a few areas where you can prepare for this exam from and what you should work on. So if you have any doubts or anything that are not yet addressed, do let me know. So, in terms of the CMAT exam, you know that 100 questions are asked, and the paper is for 400 marks. For every right question, you get +4. For every incorrect question, you get -1. This is the pattern. In terms of what we want to know from for verbal and verbal ability, so-called verbal ability type questions like statement conclusion, statement argument, syllogism questions, or any other type. Uh, the thing that we are really tested on is our ability to be accurate uh, in terms of, let's say, accurate vis-a-vis speed. So, this is what is actually being tested, how fast we can solve questions. And really, it is up to us to not make a mistake because, broadly speaking, in terms of if you compare all the exams that you have taken so far, let's say if you've taken NMAT, SNAP, CAT, ZAT, the CMAT paper is much easier, right? So it's really up to us to make sure that our accuracy is really high, and we aren't making any compromises in terms of going too fast or solving questions from a point of view where we aren't paying attention to the words because we're just trying to finish questions. So I just want to remind all of you all that uh, in terms of solving, the best way to practice this paper is not to work too much on fundamentals, because this is tested but in a very bare basic way. This especially this advice is applicable to those students who are already in this cycle and who have prepared for NMAT, SNAP at least, and CAT and ZAT. So don't spend too much time working on fundamentals. You spend your time taking previous year papers, right? And which area, what papers to solve, I'll just let you know. I've already discussed this in CAT, but this is actually much more applicable for the current CMAT paper. Is the 1990 until 2008 CAT papers. These in terms of difficulties, these are really hard compared to the CMAT exam. So what you'll have to do is you'll have to be a little selective, right? Don't solve the RCs. The RCs are not applicable for the current CMAT exam. I'll tell you the question types which are applicable. The fill in the blank question types are applicable from this, and as it is, you can take them. In fact, I would say they're a little hard, the CAT ones, but they are applicable for CMAT. The analogy question type is applicable as it is. The CMAT analogy question also has similar level of difficulty if you look at the past 4 years papers. Uh, the sentence completion type question type also is applicable for the CMAT exam. So you'll find like hundreds of questions in this time frame in previous year CAT papers. So this is an ideal source for working on your CMAT exam. The other synonym, antonym question types are also covered in the previous year CAT papers. This is 91 till 2008 CAT papers. So really for the CMAT exam, what I'd expect all of you to do is make a collection of all these questions, different questions from different areas, and actually try to go through them really fast. Rather than, there's no point working on fundamentals too much in these questions. Idioms and phrases also. So don't spend or don't invest too much of your time working on fundamentals. Rather, solve previous year CAT papers of this time frame. Be very selective about the questions that you're choosing. These question types you can solve pretty much as it is. The synonym antonym question type as well. RCs are not applicable. Uh, there are about, let's say, 40 odd percent of parajumble questions you can solve from the previous year CAT papers. But in short, if you actually cover these papers, you have ample practice for the CMAT verbal exam, the verbal part of the CMAT exam, right? So your focus should be on speed, and that means you're solving previous year questions and previous year papers as is, preferably. So at least the 2018 till the current CMAT papers, which you'll find online, please go ahead and solve all those with a timer. The the entire point of the CMAT exam is that we manage our time well. All right. So let me start with discussing a few questions which are relevant to the exam that we are supposed to take. In terms of the question types, I've selected the questions from previous year CMAT papers and the CAT papers that I just spoke about. In case someone else is asking, just let me check. Okay, for in terms of percentile wise marking, the career launcher website, we have actually covered this in detail, what sort of percentile you can get from what sort of scores, and what colleges are available to you based on that percentile. So please do visit that. It's covered in more detail there. Okay. So the other area that you can practice these questions from, which I frequently get asked about, but it's not really available to students, is SNAP and NMAT previous year papers. These you have to purchase. Like if you're taking the exam, you have to purchase their book, and the book has those previous year papers. They're not really available online. So, but the exam and the paper is actually more applicable. Like if IPMAT previous year paper is actually the closest to CMAT. So if you find these previous year papers, nothing like it, it's actually closer to the exam that you're preparing for. Um, like I said, less time working on fundamentals, more time just solving previous year papers is the best case scenario in the time frame that you have. You have somewhere close to 2 weeks left. I would target, like Adit has been asking about his percentile, for a higher number, the best possible score, I would target solving at least 10-12 papers, and not really worrying about like the specifically the score as such, but making sure that I am being stable while solving really fast. I'm not overlooking words. I'm not making silly mistakes. Essentially, that would be my broad focus. With this, let's get started with the questions. So, like I said, I've chosen these questions, and I'll discuss the question type shortly. But as we discuss each question, let's get started with the first question. Uh, Others, type in your answers. Please ask your doubts. Like someone has just asked any tips about vocabulary. If you've attended my prior classes, you would know this. So I don't really like to repeat stuff, but I'll go through it shortly. Nevertheless, uh, let me first discuss this question, and then I'll tell you how to work on vocabulary from the point of view of the CMAT exam specifically. Uh, One moment. All right. So in an analogy question, we are usually asked in the following: choose the pair of words having a same relationship or having an opposite relationship. Okay. uh, if you simply look at an analogy question, don't simply start solving thinking they're asking for the same relationship. Okay, sometimes they'll ask for the opposite relationship, and you don't want to, again, like I said, in this exam we end up making mistakes because we are going too fast and we overlook words and so on and so forth. So read the instructions carefully. The first thing that you have to do is invest a little time in figuring out what this relationship is like, and then figuring out what could be the right answer. So elevated and exalted. So we notice that here they have a synonymous relationship. Elevated could be to physically elevate some object or some person, and exalted is to respect, highly respect some person. So you notice a synonymous relationship, right? Now this synonymous relationship should be resonated by one of the options here. Correct. Now, disorderly and unfaithful, this is not a synonymous relationship, right? Although they are both speaking of negative qualities, it's not necessarily a synonymous relationship. Raise and commensurate. Commensurate actually means equal or equivalent, right? So this is not a, again, and this is not a synonymous relationship. Now, promoted and excellence. So for excellence, one may be promoted, right? We can logically understand, for excellence one may be promoted. So firstly, this is not a direct synonymous, although both are positive. This is not a direct synonymous relationship. If A happens, B can happen. Like I can say, if A happens, B may happen, right? So it is, they have a logical relationship with each other, but they don't necessarily have a synonymous relationship. And you also, in this case, realize that dirty and filthy are direct synonyms. Correct. So the correct answer here would be D, dirty and filthy. Dirty is to filthy, right? One moment. Okay. So as I can tell, those few students who got this question wrong, if you don't mind answering this question, why do you think you got it wrong? One could be, one of the reasons why the analogy question frequently goes wrong is that we haven't spent enough time figuring out what exactly this relationship is like. The other is, you know that these are incorrect, this sounds correct, and this is the original relationship is both positive terms. Therefore, we think both positive terms, but that's not good enough, right? We want these two are used synonymously, right? We want an option which will cover that synonymous nature. So only option D would do that. Okay. So let me try and address questions regarding some of the questions regarding vocabulary that students are asking. See, for although these exams are now, this is a moot case, but it applies to all these exams. So let me just, and our CMAT exam, right? So what you want to remember is all these exams and ZAT I'll write in red because it sort of applies for ZAT, because ZAT asks a tougher kind of question, uh, a tougher version of the question. But basically, the question types that are covered in these exams are the same. Uh, for vocabulary, I'm talking, and this applies to grammar also, by the way, in case you're interested. So the question types covered are the same, and all these question types are, like I've mentioned over and over again, like a broken record. They are taken from this. because this was the original source for, this is sort of the formative years of MBA aptitude exams in India. So this is your source, go-to source. What I want to tell all of you all is the set of questions that are asked for vocabulary and the set of questions that are asked for grammar, it's a limited pool. Although the pool is a little big, but it's a limited pool, meaning that if you cover somewhere close to say 1,000, 1,500 questions from previous year papers, that's sufficient, more than sufficient for you to answer any of these exams. By the way, I know that this doesn't necessarily apply now, but for the CMAT exam as well, if you cover these previous year papers, all of these, and just solve the vocabulary questions, you'll get a question bank. So my preference is that when we are working to improve our vocab scores in the exam, right? That's what we're trying to do. This is not a exercise for improving your spoken vocabulary or your spoken English. This is for you to score better than you're scoring right now in terms of vocabulary in the exam. So what you need to do is create a question bank. You don't need to create the question bank first. You simply start solving questions from all these papers that I've discussed. And what you do is you keep an Excel sheet, and each time you don't know the answer to a particular question, uh, you make sure that you record it in that sheet. So by the end of and you record it in based on your preference in the level of detail that you want. Like I would want you to record not just the word, but the sentence. That if you Google disorderly and its meaning, Google is going to give you its meaning and a sentence, right? So record the sentence also, so you know the usage. So what you're doing for grammar and for vocab questions is that you're going through previous year papers, creating this question bank. And the ideal thing is for us to revise that question bank before the exam, right? Preferably once, preferably twice at least. The reason why I'm saying once is because I know there's like only 2 weeks left. But to be honest, these question types and going through, like I said, 1,500 2,000 questions sounds a lot, but won't take as much time as you think. Recording it in the Excel sheet is going to take longer than actually going through the questions, and revising it is going to take a little longer. So I would say at least target at least one revision, preferably at least two revisions. You should have like the ability to revise it in somewhere close to 4 hours, 5 hours. Usse zyada, if you make notes, if you make very detailed notes, it's not going to be effective. It's not going to be revisable. Mm, okay. So that's my advice for solving or improving your ability for vocab related questions or grammar related questions, is to create a short question bank for yourself and go through those previous year questions. Uh, Really, there's no point doing word power made easy and books of those nature, especially for the CMAT exam, because the questions are easier, firstly. Secondly, it doesn't cover the kind of questions that exams ask. Exams usually ask these. The reason why I said create a question bank from previous year exam questions is the exams usually ask these questions in a cyclical way, right? So they'll revisit some of these at some point in some different question, and then they'll revisit some of these at some point in a different question. So work on questions, and that way you end up covering what examiners the covering the pool from which examiners take from and modify from. All right. Please start with question two. All right. When we solve the first question, I told you not to solve the question blindly. Choose the pair which does not exhibit the relationship similar. This is what we're looking for. So, in case, you know, people have missed out on it, I just wanted to check if anyone has missed out on it or not. Please continue solving. This is a easier question if you notice the instructions. Just a moment. I'll get started with the explanation. All right. Uh, all right. So we are looking for a relationship similar. Sorry, dissimilar. We're looking for a relationship dissimilar. Now, first is you invest some time, expect the analogy question in the exam, expect at least two questions. If you, on an average, look at the past 6 years papers, they've asked at least one or two questions. So go with two questions. Uh, to rent something, you pay lease or you pay rent, sorry, you pay rent to lease something, you pay interest to borrow something, you pay salary to employ someone, you pay a price to buy something, but you don't pay tax to govern, correct? You pay rent to lease and so on and so forth. So all these are the same. You pay A to get B, right? To lease something, to borrow something, to employ something, to buy something. So this was the initial relationship. D is the right answer in this case, which does not exhibit a relationship similar. So again, from what I noticed, people have gotten the answer wrong. That's fine. I want you to keep a track of, did you get it wrong because you missed these instructions? Did you get it wrong because you didn't invest enough time in figuring out what this was? And so on and so forth. Uh, the right answer here is D. Let's look at the next question. We are looking for the relationship. I'll just mark this before because I think some students are missing this. Please get started. All right. So just like the car travels on the road, right? So A needs B for travel, or the medium for A to travel is B. So we can phrase it in different ways. Just like car travels on the road, or A needs B to travel, or the medium for A to travel is B. Okay, so the right answer here would be A, electricity is to cable. Ink is to pencil is incorrect, although both are writing instruments. The first one is not required for the second. We could, if this was pen, if it was, it would have been a correct choice. For the first thing to flow, we need the second thing, although not necessary, but it would be somewhat similar. So B is incorrect because of pencil. C, bomb and missile. This is incorrect as well. Fly and bird. This is incorrect as well. Bomb and missile. I see students go with this often. Let me check what students have gone with. All right, I'll go faster. I was just wondering because students aren't responding. Bomb is to missile is sometimes confusing for students because bomb can be used as explosive, and missile can also be used as explosive. The word can be used to mean explosive, but missile can also mean projectile. So usually a missile is something, a projectile armed with a bomb, right? So this is a problem in analogy questions. The reason why I'm going in this option in depth is that there is a tendency to actually make mistakes by over analyzing options. Option A is the correct choice for this question. Let's start with the next analogy question. We're looking at fleet is to navy and similar. Please continue. Fleet is to navy. What's the answer? What do you think? See, the question type looks easy, but we need to figure out what exactly it's trying to say. We know a fleet is a part of the navy, right? So A is a part of B. This is clear to us, correct? Now, a drop is a part of the ocean. So this would be correct. A letter is a part of a word. So this would be correct. Seats are part of an auditorium. This would be correct. Chapter is part of a book. This would be correct. So this analysis, A is a part of B, is not enough, correct? We need something more. So for that reason, we need to analyze this further. So a fleet is a collective noun, or to just make it simpler, is a collective unit, but it's one unit which operates as a whole. It's one unit which operates as a whole. So one drop is one singular drop. It's not a unit, right? It's not a unit, and it doesn't operate as a whole. One letter also is just one single alphabet. It's not one collective. It's not one collective unit. It doesn't operate as a whole. And seats also invalid. The right answer here would be chapter is to book. Chapter is one collection of words, one collective unit, one collective noun, and that operates as a functional unit in terms of a book, right? It has a functional role. So right answer is A. All right, let's see the next one. Statement argument is another question type that you can expect in the exam. Please go through this and I'll discuss how to solve it once you're done choosing the answer. What do you think is the right answer for this? You should decide which of the arguments are strong arguments and which are weak arguments and accordingly choose your answers. The statement is, should religion be taught in schools? This is a 2021 question. No, ours is a secular state. Yes, teaching religion helps inculcate moral values among children. No, how can one dream of such a step when we want the young generation to fulfill its role in the 21st century? This should be 21st century. Right. Uh, okay. So the way I wanted to solve this question is, first is we are looking for, in this case, strong arguments. Which of the following are strong arguments? And you should read it after you read the question here or statement here. By the way, sometimes statement bol ke they'll ask a question also, but you should just read it as, no, religion should not be. So after saying no, you read the original statement. No, religion should not be taught in schools because ours is a secular state. So religion should not be taught in schools and ours is a secular state. This is not exactly covering why we should not teach religion. Yes, it is a secular state, but that means that the state does not take any part in terms of religion. But should schools cover religion? Unknown. Okay. So again, let me explain the logic to you, but first focus on the method. Read the statement, then inculcate the statement while reading the argument. No, we should not teach religion in schools because ours is a secular state. This is talking about schools and religion, right? And this is saying secular state. This tells me what the government should or should not do, right? It should not actively support a religion. It should not actively go against a religion, so on and so, whatever the definition of secular would mean. But it's not exactly telling me whether religion should be taught in schools or not. So this would count as a weak argument. Okay. Now, yes, we should teach religion in our schools because teaching religion helps inculcate moral values. So now, if you notice, option two or argument two is more valid than argument one because, firstly, it's applicable. It's telling us teaching whatever this is, teaching it helps inculcate or helps improve something, right? So, option two is actually applicable. Option three or argument three says, no, we should not teach religion in schools because how can one dream of such a step when we want the young generation to fulfill its role in the 21st century? Again, the same thing. We don't know how teaching religion would stop young generation from fulfilling its role. This is not clear, right? So when we say an argument is strong or weak, we decide based on relevance of that argument first. Is it relevant or not? Right? That's what you check. Argument one, this is in this case we know factually true. Sometimes they'll state random things, but in this case we know this is factually true. This also, that 21st century requires the generation to be a different generation, may also be factually true. But in terms of teaching religion in schools, they are not relevant. So the first test that you want to remember for statement argument questions is you are checking for relevance. Okay. So right answer here is two. Only two is strong. Let me check what others have gone with. All right. So some of you have gotten it right. That's great. Okay. So let's see the next one. The same question. And again, decide the argument first on relevance and then whether it's valid or not. We are looking for strong arguments, or essentially strong or weak. You'll have to identify based on the option. Fairly easy question, right? Compared to the questions we have covered so far in terms of analogy question, I would say this would be the one of the more easier questions. Uh, so the method that you want to follow is, should all factories in the cities be shifted to outskirts? far away from the main city, then we say yes, all the factories in the cities should be shifted to outskirts far away from the city, because this is essential for controlling pollution in the city. So this tells us correctly that the factories, if we shift them outside, this will, relevance is that it will stop pollution in the city. So A will lead to B. So relevant, strong. Let's look at two. No, we should not move all the factories to outskirts, because such a step will lead to a lot of inconvenience to the employees of the factories and their families as well. So the right answer here would be option D. Only argument one is strong. All right, this is invalid. Actually, only argument one is strong is the right answer here. The marking is incorrect. All right. Now, the parajumble question, you've all seen the parajumble question before. This is the same parajumble question that has been asked before in many exams that you have taken in MAT, SNAP. Not the CAT one, because here we have options presented. Please start with this. We have to arrange them in a coherent, what the other exams would say is arrange them in a coherent order. Please get started with this. So, okay, I'll wait. All right, I'm presuming someone has answered this. Okay. So, if you want to arrange these in a coherent or a meaningful way, again, please go through the prior classes I've done for parajumble questions in CAT. These are obviously with options, so there's a little ease here. First thing about the method I want all of you to remember for parajumble questions is read from D to A. Okay, this is reading from A to D is the worst possible order, because the examiner has chosen this order to be the most confusing, or we can say the most invalid idea or image created for us. So, in short, reading from A to D is walking right into the trap set by the examiner. So, you don't want to do that. You read from D to A and you look for clear clues. It must be clearly known to them. So, what must be clearly known to them? So, I start looking for clearly option D is referring to something specific before. I want this clue to be connected to some sentence before. I want to form what we call is a mandatory pair. This is just a compulsory pair. It's a made up term, but we have to follow the method because we want to figure out one unit of the puzzle first, right? One unit of the jigsaw puzzle first. Okay. Teamwork does not just happen. Men work together for a cause or purpose. It results from a carefully revised plan. So, fairly easy sentences, but it results from and it results from. These I need to fix. Correct? Now, if you'll notice, teamwork does not just happen. Men work together for a cause or purpose. So, here the only thing that could refer to it would be cause or purpose. There's nothing in sentence C which refers to this it in sentence D. There's nothing in sentence A which refers to it. But sentence D has it, right? So I want to make sure that BD is a pair, but this doesn't immediately have to be a pair. It can have a sentence in between also, which is talking about, what the author wanted to say. So let's look at men work together for a cause or purpose. It must be clearly known to them. Uh, we know that these are connected in some way, shape, or form, right? These are connected in some way, shape, or form. So let me look at the answers. Okay. So, which mandatory pair do you think you can make in this case? Apart from B, D possibly, B, C, D possibly. What do you think? Right. So, if in case someone has not yet answered, it results from a carefully revised plan. Okay. So, CA is a better start, correct? CA is a better start. CA covers teamwork does not just happen, it results from a carefully revised plan, correct? Men work together for a cause or purpose, it must be clearly known to them. So CABD is the correct choice. What I want you to pay attention to is go through the method. We noticed these two as clues, and then we started looking for connections in these sentences, right? And we found that CA talks of teamwork does not just happen, it results from a carefully revised plan. Uh, Men work together for a cause or purpose, it must be clearly known to them. So, coherence because carefully revised plan, right? Which in this case, teamwork does not just happen, it results. So, it results is teamwork results from, right? So, this gave us CA in case this was a little confusing. Results from a carefully revised plan. Plan is the purpose. Men work together for a cause or purpose. It must be clearly known to them, which is known from the plan. So CABD is the sequence. All right. So let's start with question 7. Also a parajumble question. Yes, others, please type in your answers. This is a relatively trickier question than the one before. Adit, Nikhil, Shreyan, Vishu, please type in your answers. What do you think is the answer? Okay. So let's look at option D. We try to arrest its few last tottering steps and to make it linger on the brink of the grave. So what is it referring to? So again, we start searching for this mandatory pair of what could D be referring to. And we have to go through different iterations, like I spoke in the prior question. It's not like it's one choice is immediately going to emerge to, right? Clearly. So we'll look at sentence C. Nothing else indeed seems to be of any consequence, and we become misers in this sense. So nothing else indeed seems to be of any consequence. So this is saying that prior to sentence C, we are speaking about some sentence, let's call it sentence X, which is saying something is extremely important, right? It's saying something like this, something of this nature. Because sentence C is saying nothing else seems to be of any value. That means prior to sentence C, something was really valuable or really important. Correct. Then we look at sentence B. As we advance in life, we acquire a keener sense of value of time. So nothing else indeed seems to be of any consequence may be connected to this. So BC could be a mandatory pair. Again, like I said, we can't be sure of it till we cover all the sentences, till we go to sentence A and look at all other possible connections we could make. Let's look at sentence A. We can never leave off wondering how that which has ever been should cease to be. Right? So, how can something should cease to be is how can something come to an end? Correct? How can something come to an end? So, we'll put sentence A aside. It's a little tricky for us to place it. But we know we can never leave off wondering is telling us that sentence A ke prior mein there is something worth wondering or analyzing or pondering over, right? Something like this has taken place prior to sentence A. So we'll put that understanding aside and then we'll try and confirm BC. We want to confirm BC in the sense that it should not be BDC or it should not have some other possible way to arrange it, right? So we can't place D in between, we can't place A in between. BC is a first mandatory pair. BC tells us as we acquire a value of time, nothing else seems to be of any consequence. So clearly, time is of uh, the most valuable commodity. Then we get sentence D. We try to arrest its few, make it linger, right? So we try to arrest its few last tottering steps. So this is telling us that time is the most valuable. We try and stop its most last few steps, and linger on the brink of the grave. So if you notice, BC is talking about the value of time, and DA, this pair is talking about trying to make it last, right? We wonder how something can come to an end. So BCDA is the right answer in this case. All right. Adit, that's right. Let's try the next question quickly. Okay. Now a few fill in the blank questions which have been asked. So let's go through these. Others type in your answers for this when you're ready. As Dash head of the organization, he attended social functions and civil meetings. So far, the questions we have covered are all previous year questions, so you can gauge the level of difficulty from the questions. They are easier than the ones you've probably seen in CAT, ZAT for sure. CAT and ZAT, they're easier than CAT and ZAT for sure. They're somewhat easier than NMAT and SNAP also. We want to just make sure that we are not making any silly mistakes. So this is actually a test of our attention and being really, uh, being comfortable with solving questions fast. It's a fast paced sort of exam. As dash head of the organization, he attended functions, but he had no dash in the formulation of the company policy. So make sure that you are estimating. I'm not using the word guess. Okay, I'm not saying guess. This is wrong. Based on the sentence, estimating the words which could go in the blank. As a so called head of the organization, he had no part in formulating the policy. So, what I did was I estimated what words could go here and then I go through the options. Right? Hypothetical and vote don't make sense. Hypothetical leader is not hypothetical head of the organization is not a phrase which is commonly used. Had no vote in the formulation of the policy could actually work, but both of these put together don't make as much sense. As nominal would work as a nominal head, right? But you need the article as nominal head, as a nominal head of the organization. Competition here would not work, correct? So we had so called head, मतलब नाम के लिए he is the head of the organization, and here we had no part. This is the estimate we had, and nominal and competition doesn't fit. Hypothetical and vote, so hypothetical doesn't fit. Let me just mark this. Competition doesn't fit, hypothetical doesn't fit. Right? Now former and pride, former member could fit here, but he had no pride in the formulation of the company policy. Again, makes no sense. So right answer is D. As the titular head, titular head is so called naam ke liye head, right? He had no voice, so he had no voice is the same as he had no part in. He could not impact the formulation of the company's policy because he was head only in name. The right answer here would be D. Let's see the next one. All right. This is a statement argument question that CMAT has asked before. Please go through this. This is their, it's not really unique, but it's their own way of asking a really short statement and a possible argument from it. All right. This is really easy. We can't afford to get this wrong. Others, type in your answers. Adit, Nikhil, Shreyan, Vishu. Really easy. A is the right answer here. A writer can only be fertile if he renews himself, and he can only renew himself if his soul is constantly enriched by fresh experience. So, writer can only write new stuff if his soul is enriched by fresh experience. These are the important words. So, writer can meet new people. This is of no value. Can is, I mean, it still sort of supports the main argument, but it's not the best supporting one. Only is a very strong way to say that this is the only way for the author to come up with something new. Can meet new people does not exactly address it. Writer must see new places. Seeing new places is and must is great because that's just like saying only. You have to do this sort of. So the certainty part, option C meets. Seeing new places is not exactly the same as fresh experience. It may or may not be categorized. It is a new place. It may or may not be categorized as a fresh experience. So we essentially have to decide between options A and C. A says only out of fresh experience can the writer get germs for new writing. So actually, option A just covers the entire argument comprehensively. Option C is sort of partial. We don't know what benefits the author can get from this, but here we know the benefits, right? From option A, we know the benefits for new writing. So option A is the correct choice. All right. Another uh, typical sort of previous year question. Please type in your answers. All right. Really easy. I don't think you need to explain the situation. Your conduct is speaking itself. I discussed at the start of this class how to prepare for vocab. If you go back to that and listen to it, I've told you the list of questions to solve from previous year papers. And if you compile that list of questions, you'll get a lot of phrases and idioms that the exams ask in a cyclical manner. Here, the right answer should be B, speak for itself. What usually, I don't think you need to explain the situation. Your conduct speaks for itself. If this was used here, right, you're talking about your conduct, which is singular. So it should be speaks for itself, and is should be removed. Right? This is how the ideal replacement would work. So the sort of tricky part is they CMAT gives the actual idiom or phrase how you'd find it in the book essentially, and not how the ideal replacement would be. The replacement would be speaks for itself. So you'd sort of have to figure it out that this should be your conduct speaks for itself, and then you go through the options and eliminate the others and select B, which is the textbook or the definition of the actual idiom speak for itself. All right, B is the right answer here. Let's see the next one. Really easy fill in the blank question from a previous year paper. All right. I was just going through some of the options that students have presented. Okay. Fairly easy. And act of justice closes the book on a misdeed, and act of vengeance does what? So opposite of closes the book. So opens the book. So remember, for the fill in the blank questions, we don't want to go to the options first, right? Or we don't want to go to the options too soon. First, we estimate what could go here, and then we go to the options. So this is saying an act of justice closes the book, an act of vengeance would open the book. So reopen the first chapter. C would be the right choice, right? As students have typed. Easy. Uh, okay. So the all right, I'll actually bring the class to an end here. There are some questions, parajumble questions, which I wanted to cover, but I actually don't want to go through the difficult questions. Those are not, if you go and revisit the questions, you can pause the video and check, I'll actually show them to you. These are not previous year CMAT questions. These are old CAT questions. The reason why I wanted to cover these was to show you that uh, the prior CAT papers, which I had spoken about, 91 till 2008, these papers will have some questions like this, correct? But they're still actually very relevant to what the exam will ask. So you'll have to make a few changes in them and solve them, but they would become actually very relevant to the CMAT exam. So those of you who are asking where to practice these questions from, and so on and so forth, that's why I'd included these questions. So briefly, I want to cover one idea that for the exam, we are working on speed, right? And being like really fast compared to the other exams. The papers that I expect you to solve are CAT 91 till 2008. Uh, if you get SNAP NMAT once, previous year CMAT papers, previous year IPMAT papers, previous year MAT papers, right? These are very relevant. From the CAT papers, you'll have to be selective, but there are some question types that you can take openly, which are analogy questions, fill in the blank questions, grammar questions, and so on and so forth, right? So I know today's class was a little rushed because I wanted to cover where you can solve these questions from as well. In the next class, I'll actually cover all the verbal questions which are asked from previous year CMAT paper only, because I've already covered where to study it from. And we'll get started on just those questions in the next class. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next class. Thank you everyone. Thank you.